Getting ready to do this camshaft swap on a 2010 GMC Yukon with a 6.2. This is the DOD engine. It can be done without having to remove the engine, but there is still a lot of steps involved to be able to get it out. So first thing is, of course, disconnect your battery. This one's already disconnected because I just towed it back over here to my place. Disconnect all of your spark plug wires off of the ignition coils, unplug it from this plug here, not individual ignition coils. Remove the bolts or studs or nuts, whatever would be holding yours on. Take the ignition coils off on both sides. Take the valve covers off. Remove the rocker arms. You don't have to take them all the way out, but you do need to remove them enough to be able to allow the lifters to push up and down freely from the inside here. Take the plastic cover off here. This has got a bunch of push clips in it. I've removed 3 so far. Pull the center out, pull the base out. On all of these, pull this out. You don't necessarily have to take that off, but it makes it a little easier getting it out of the way. Remove the radiator fan. There's a plug right here on the bottom side of it. There's another one over there on that one. These are 13 millimeters that hold this fan in. One 13 millimeter here, one 13 millimeter on the opposite side, and then it's got slides that it goes into down here at the bottom. You want to remove the oil cooler lines. Remove this bolt here, remove this radiator hose, and on the opposite side you have transmission lines that mount. You want to remove the 10 millimeter bolt that goes into this transmission line here. Remove the overflow hose, the bolt, and your transmission lines. You may want to remove this before trying to remove the radiator fan because it is bolted to the radiator fan. So 10 millimeter first, radiator fan wires, radiator fan bolts, slide the radiator fan up and out. Take your breather tube off, that way you have access here. Take your belt off. That's a 15 millimeter on all of the GM tensioners that are this newer body style, or newer engines rather. 5.3, 4.8, 6.0, 6.2, 8.1s. Literally all of the LS based engines. You don't have to remove anything else except for the water pump, crankshaft pulley, and timing cover. After you do that, you have full access to the inside of the engine. Once you get the valve covers off, the rocker arms off on both sides, there is an access hole behind the water pump. Sorry, not behind the water pump. Behind the timing cover that you want to push 5/16 dowels through while slightly moving the camshaft back and forth to be able to allow it to push the lifters out on both sides while it is at its lowest point on the camshaft itself. You don't have to worry about it messing anything up because it's not connected to anything. No valves are going to hit the pistons. If you have a manual fan or a clutch fan, you want to take it off. This one doesn't have one. Thankfully, it has electric fans. And I think that's all that's actually holding on in the front. Remove this guy right here. Literally clips in. I say literally, and it doesn't want to come out. Those lines slide out and then disconnect from the side of the radiator here. After you take the fan or the belts off, the one that you're going to be fighting with the most is going to be that belt there if you don't have a tensioner on it. This one, of course, doesn't have a tensioner on it, so it has the stretch belt. You can put the belt onto the back side of the crankshaft pulley and then press it back on with a long reach installer. I do have one of those. It'll be easier doing all of that with it being out. There are 10mm bolts that hold the water pump to the engine. I don't know, maybe you're probably going all over the place, and I apologize. There's two 10mm bolts here, one just below in that hole there, and then 3 on the opposite side here. 2 hiding away in there, and 1 after you get that belt out, you'll have full access to it. All of them are 10mm. And it's cheaper to go ahead and replace the water pump gaskets while it's off than it is to try to reuse them, putting it back on, and then have to take it all back apart again. Take it from experience. When you put it back together, your rocker arms are 28 foot-pounds. That's it. Don't go over that. There's no need to go over that. They'll compress the spring down regardless at 28 foot-pounds. These are like 13 foot-pounds, I believe it says. The crankshaft bolt, I tighten it until it bottoms, and it does have a bottom. I also think, if I can't remember exactly, but I think it has a keyway on it as well. I first started this job on this thing a couple months ago, and I've been waiting on parts, so in between doing other jobs and then bouncing back and forth between this one to get things progressing a little bit, I've forgotten, which is not uncommon for an ADHD brain, so forgive me. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else you have to do aside from putting it back together and making sure you don't break any bolts, and hope you don't break any bolts taking it apart. But you can get down to where you can take the cam out in about 3 hours if you've done it more than once. If you've never done it and you're doing this for your first time, take your time. It is not hard, but it is easy to screw something up. So just take your time, make sure everything comes apart easily. I'll tell you in advance, if your studs look like this, these are 10mm. Sorry if that is not very clear. These are 10mm studs. Those bolts there are 8mm. All of the water pump bolts are 10mm. The crankshaft bolt, if I'm not mistaken, is a 15/16. Stick my hand down here and find out. Yep, it feels like a 15/16 or a 24mm, both work. This flathead screwdriver or an 8mm on both ends, here and here. Same on this side, 10mm and 8mm. This, you need 10mm, 8mm, deep well 10mm, 24 or 15/16 or both. Crankshaft pulley, deep reach or long reach, whatever you want to call it. A long reach installer. A lot of patience. You need, oh yeah, so the timing cover, the underside of this thing, if yours is all-wheel drive, you'll have to probably remove the drive, the front differential, and then in the very front, oh, you can't see it, and I can't really get all the way up under there, but you've got a couple bolts right here, right in the very front, that have to come off. Once you get those off, you'll be able to get the timing cover off, because it bolts through the oil pan into the bottom of the timing cover. Let's see. pretty much everything there. Be careful. A lot of plastic will break if you're not careful. The clips back there usually don't break, but it is possible. As I said, just take your time, you can do it. Assuming you're mechanically inclined. If you're not mechanically inclined, it's going to be a little difficult. I do think I have a coolant leak on here as well, so I'll look at that when I start taking everything apart. I've seen something dripping underneath. Thanks for watching.